my life financially took a big turn whenever I restored my credit. I run the comps and they can't believe it. What would an extra $60,000 do to anybody? An extra $100,000, an extra $200,000,
no bills.
$400,000.
It's almost an $800,000 house.
More than money, it's about empowerment. Welcome to MSI Wealth Chronicles.
Welcome back to MSI Wealth Chronicles. Great place where you can come and find out how to take control of your own wealth, your finances, and look forward to your future. Name's Jesse Hartman. I'm here with my boss, Ricardo Mendola. And, glad to be back. Thank you for having me back on here.
Mendiola.
I am in so much trouble.
The Louisiana accent. I know it's.
Yeah,
it
New
Orleans?
New Orleans.
Yep.
The other one that gets caught on there is the word yesterday.
Oh, I never
It does
heard.
this little bounce thing. I don't know what it's a word down there that's pretty big about that. You see that a lot.
That almost sounds like a Northeast accent, a little bit. Say it again.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
You will find that there's a part of the Bronx that sounds exactly like people from New Orleans.
Yeah, I could just see it there.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
But let's give the listeners what they're, what they came for.
Absolutely.
What they're tuning in for. And I guess where we could start off is, so you always give all of our credit consultants here at the MSI headquarters, an update on the real estate market.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the real estate market, how it is, now, what it's looking like in the near future, and maybe what it looked like this past year? Sure.
The biggest thing that I see going on right now, people are talking about is rates, yes. Right? They've been volatile for the last year.
Yes,
I mean, last year's average was like 6.61%. However, it went from 6.1% to 8 back down to 6.6, all in a 12-month period. And we're starting high right now. And really what people need to remember about that is you're not buying the rate in the world, you're buying a house.
Yes.
You can get out of that rate. And are they going to come down? I really honestly think they are.
Yeah. Jesse, can you tell us what interest rates are right now? Here, we're January 2024. What are interest rates currently?
The interest rate right now is 6.81% as of this morning. But you know what? To be honest with you, I think by August it's going to be down around the 5.5 area.
Yep. It's an election year too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm a real estate agent myself, and I already see a difference. I think two things: A, interest rates have went down.
Yep.
But B, it's also that time. Spring is coming.
Yep.
Spring and summer, which those are the two typically, no matter what the interest rates are, those are the two typically, hottest seasons of the year. So I already see the difference. Applications are increasing, and
sure.
More applications equals more pre-approvals, and then more people that we get into homes.
Yeah, my all the loan officers that we work with here, a lot of them are talking about right now. They're getting ramped up. They expect a lot of an increase over the next 3 months.
Yeah.
And like you said, for the time of the year, it's just like they see a big increase in June and July because that's the number one time of the year for people to start moving in the United States.
Yep.
Something like 5 to 10% of the population of the country moves somewhere else out of their area code during those 2 months.
Yep. But I agree with you. Right now, I believe is a really good time to buy. And the reason why is interest rates have went down. This is my opinion, right? Interest rates have went down.
They have.
Last year, you just said that the peak was right around the high 7s, low 8s, right?
Yeah, high 7s, low 8s.
Right now, you mentioned they're in the 6s, So, and we're going into our hottest season, spring and summer.
Yep.
But some people are still on the sidelines right now. And I have a feeling with, another decrease in interest rates, and then also with the season, spring, being 2-3 months away, those two things, combined, I think it's about to get, I think there's about to be a lot of buyers, and I think it's going to get very competitive again. Maybe not as competitive as it was, right around, when the interest rates dropped right after COVID. But I think it's in that way because a lot of people have been on the sidelines because of these interest rates.
Yes, sir.
Tons of people. And you mentioned something interesting to me just the other day. What did you mention? Can you tell our listeners something about a new wave of people coming in? To purchasing homes.
Yeah. So right now, you got to look at generations that are coming in. Generation X, Boomers was the largest generation ever out there, right? And mostly you hear Boomers, X, and Millennials and negative content. But when you got to really look at is Boomers are the largest generations. Gen X was a small generation, and you have another massive, the second largest group of people in the history of the United States coming into their early 30s.
Which
now.
is what are they categorized as?
Those are mostly millennials.
Okay,
The millennials are coming of that buyer's age, which is about 30 years of age. 30 to 32 is the average age to buy a house in the United States, and they're dead center in them right? Yeah. And so you have this, you're not going to have a slowdown of people who need to buy homes for another 10 or 15 years because that generation's going to be coming along and then the next one behind it. Yeah. I think between the number of people who are coming into the industry, the fact that builders aren't building houses like they did 2007, 6. They was build as many houses as you possibly could in a straight line, right? Yep. If they could just make a little machine to print them out, they would have. Stamp. Now they're like, we don't want to get caught with all that inventory in hand.
Yep.
And then on top of that, you've got what was that other factor somebody was talking about the other day? The number of foreclosures in the United States is at one of its lowest points.
Yeah.
The average person who owns a home doesn't have has got good credit, and they have 2/3 of all mortgages are under 4%.
Yep. Everybody refinanced or bought a house whenever rates dropped.
So we're going to see a steady. People worried about home prices. I think you should buy now. For your wealth in the long run, because if you buy now, you're going to get the house you want. Yep. Because in 2 months, 3 months, when people have more money in their hand because of income tax, because of the beginning of the year, getting rid of everything, making promises to themselves, you're going to see more people in the buyer's market in the next couple of months than you do right this second. And then you're going to look at a little bit of a bidding war. It's not going to be COVID again, where you see 50 people making a bid on one house. Yep. But it only takes one other person bidding on the house for you to lose money.
Yep. And like you mentioned, right now is a good time, for that reason, because as soon as it gets more competitive, multiple offers, you might even have to, pay above asking. Right now, there's still a lot of great deals. We're actively taking our clients out there right now. Builders are motivated right now, giving a ton of incentives. Yep. And with the builder, you could actually get the best of both worlds. If you lock in a home with the builder, you get today's prices, which they haven't increased, too much, as of now, because it hasn't gotten as hot as we're predicting it's going to get.
Right.
And then number two, right, you get, the interest rates that you're getting to, like we were saying, the interest rates are not bad right now. They're in the 6s. No. And if interest rates ever get low, what do? You refinance, right? You refinance.
Absolutely. And
like you said, you're not marrying the interest rate.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. You're not married, You marry the house, you date the rate. You let that, you're going to date it for a while and then get rid of it and get a new one.
Yes.
That's kind of what I hear a lot of people say about that. But, they talk about the interest rates being high right now. If you go back to 2000, right, you're looking at 8-9% in interest rates then.
Yep.
We actually have a pretty good interest rate now, even compared to what it has been historically.
Exactly.
So I think it's going to go down over the next few months. I think by August, we're going to be looking, after you get that last rush in June and July, I think we're going to have a drop in it then.
I mean, the Fed's already said it. They're hoping not to increase the interest rates this year. So let's see if they fulfill that promise.
If they don't increase it, and if they cut it even, because there's a slim possibility of that, that'll make a big difference.
If they cut it, I have a feeling that people are going to go crazy. It's gonna get berserks out there.
Yeah, and you know what people, I don't know about the audience, but something the audience may not know is the federal prime rate is not what makes the mortgage.
Yes.
However, whenever the prime rate is lowered or lowered, all the people who are buying and selling get a little worried and they sell off. When it goes up, they actually start buying more and they start lending more money because they make more at that point. So with your mortgage, the prime rate is one effect, the federal rate is one effect, but it is not the whole thing. But it's about, I'd say 2/3 of what's going to happen is based on what goes around that, and that's just for everybody out there.
No, that's good information. I mean, it definitely, the Fed's increasing the rates, right? It's affected everything. It's affected. The other day I was looking at a credit card statement, and I didn't even know credit card companies are allowed to go this high. Interest rates on credit cards are like 30%.
Yes.
And I don't know the exact number, but the number has increased, in the U.S. of the amount of debt that consumers have. So you combine, increased debt with all-time highs on credit card debt, 30%. I couldn't imagine how long it takes, someone, paying off some credit card debt, paying, the minimum payment or a little bit over the minimum payment.
Do you know we're now, I don't know if you realize, but with the new action plan, we actually tell them that.
Oh, yeah. How long it would take?
How long it'll take. The average, according to Bank Trust, right? The average percentage for what your minimum payment is 2 to 3% of whatever the amount is if it's over $25, right? Our system actually will calculate how much they have. If it's more than 25, it'll put that in there, and then it gives them the number of months it takes to pay it out by minimum payments.
Nice.
That can be a shocker of a number.
Yeah.
I did a client's, I think last week, and it came up that one of them was with the minimum payment, paying their minimum payment, it was 237 months.
Nice. That's crazy. That's a lot.
To pay off a credit card.
Yeah.
And I was like, how do you, that marriages don't last that long sometimes.
Yeah.
Right. And you're taking the number like that. So really the biggest way to affect your credit and to help with your interest rate is starting with those credit cards.
Yep. And for those that don't know what, the listeners that don't know what Jesse's talking about, he's talking about our action plan. Whenever a client signs up, an MSI client signs up in our credit repair services, we give them a consultation. And during that consultation, of course, we give them the investment that they're going to pay for us to, represent them. But then we also give them an action plan of what they could do to increase their credit scores on their own, things that we have no control over.
Right. So, the things in the house that, in a perfect world, you do this list of things, and it's going to help you out while we're helping remove the
I'm
bad
excited about
things.
that new feature that, we're launching here very soon. When? A week?
Actually, it's on board and being used now.
Oh, nice.
We have, for this week, it started on Monday.
Okay.
So as of Monday, it is putting it out to where you can see it. It's got a list of it shows you all your debt on credit cards, and because that's what you should pay down first to get your credit up. It shows you a list of things based on 60 to 70 points in your credit report that you need to do. And it actually tells you to call back into the account managers and let them know when you did it. Yep. Because that way, you're actually going down that list and knocking them out. Some of them you can do immediately in a day. Some of them are a habit to learn.
Yes.
And the last part is how to pay off your debt the best possible way. And it's down there and tells you what to pay in what order.
Yep. And that's an interesting subject that you just mentioned right now, debt. You mentioned paying off credit card debt first, right?
Right.
Can you tell our listeners, because that's always intrigued me, right? There's the two most common types of debt are revolving debt and installment debt. And it's proven that revolving debt affects your credit score more, right?
Yep.
So can you go into that a little bit more?
Sure. Part of that is that credit card debt is considered, what is the word, voluntary or unnecessary debt. Whereas an installment, you got a house, you're going to pay your house to stay living. You got a car, you're going to pay your car to stay a living. They're not worried about those things as much. Your credit card debt, on the other hand, is what you want to do, right? And because of that, that's part of why it affects your debt the most. It also, it affects your credit score because your payments are variable. If I've got $100 on my credit card, my payment's $25, right? But if I got 10 grand on my credit card, my payment may be $400 or $500, and that's going to hurt your score when your debt to income gets affected like that.
Yeah, but I saw an article, from the bureaus, and they said it basically exactly like that. They said credit card debt, which is revolving debt, is your wants. You know, it's your shopping, it's going out to eat, it's your vacations. And then they said that your installment debt, right? Student loans, mortgage debt, auto debt, right? That is your needs.
Yes, sir.
So that's exactly why they penalize you with a more deduction of points when you have revolving debt. So back to what I was saying earlier, for our listeners, if someone has debt and they have a little bit of disposable income, they want to start off by paying off the revolving debt because it's going to have more of a positive impact on your credit scores. And then on top of that, we all know this, revolving debt typically always has a higher interest rate. We just talked about it right now, right? Credit card debts. I mean, I'm telling you, I was shocked. This credit card that I saw on my mortgage statement, on my credit card statement was like 30%. I never heard of that. 30%. That's insane.
Well, part of that all came a few years ago when there was a bunch of changes in the rules about credit cards, and they gave credit cards the ability to increase that rate because they took away something else, and I don't remember what that is off the top of my head. But to be honest with you, I mean that's 30%. I mean, imagine that's like I borrow $100 and you charge me $30 a month. I mean, I know a guy in the mob on one of those movies that charges less than that. That is, I mean, lethal.
And sorry to pivot on that, but I know that the time where consumers have a lot of disposable income is right now. Everybody's getting their W-2s, right, from their employer, and they're filing their tax returns. So a lot of consumers have disposable income. And, their New Year's resolutions are typically what? They involve finances. So a lot of people out there are going to be paying off some debt. And you heard it here. You want to pay off your credit card debt first because A, it will save you some money. It has a higher interest rate. But B, it's going to have more of a positive impact on your credit score.
There's a flip side to the reason you want to pay that credit card debt off first too, is if you've got like a car loan or a student loan or a home loan, when you pay that off, it quits helping you out. There's like 30% of your credit comes from what you have as far as how much debt you have, let's say $100,000 in debt versus how much you've used. Well, it quits giving you those numbers. So that goes away. And also you lose the history of that. And so any kind of installment loan, once you pay it off, and that's any loan you pay over time, and then at the end it's paid off, right? That's going to be like your car loan, your student loans, your home loan. Once you pay it off, the only thing on there that affects you are the negative items. And they stick with you for 7 years from when they were doing. So if you pay off your credit cards, your installment are still helping you, and now your credit cards are doing more for you. So all the way around, right now, I agree with you. If I suddenly came into a bunch of money right this moment, pay off my credit cards, I would then go through and make sure I took care of anything else. Like, do I have negative items on my credit report? What can I do about getting rid of those? Thinking about that, one of the things you don't have to worry about, did you hear what they did with medical this last year?
Oh, yes. Two things, actually, right? A was in 2023, any medical that you pay off has to be removed from your credit report.
Yes, sir.
So no longer do you beg the collection agencies, or the creditor, being the doctor, hey, please remove this from my credit report if I pay it, right? Now they have to remove it from your credit report completely when you pay it. And then number two is any medical collection that is under $500 cannot even report to your credit report, even if it's not paid.
Yeah, that was the part that blew my mind. Doesn't matter if you ever pay it. It cannot be put to your credit report ever again.
And I read somewhere, I don't know if you've read this yet or not. This might be interesting to our audience. Why did they do that? Do you know why they do that?
No, I actually think it has to do more with, personally, with our older the older Americans, because they rack up a lot of debt on a fixed income. But that's kind of my hopeful side of my heart.
And I don't remember the source where this came from, but they said it was COVID. Because of COVID, tons of consumers nationwide were getting medical bills and getting medical bills going on their credit report as a collection. They weren't able to pay them. So to help out, these consumers nationwide, that's why they made that rule where any collection under $500 can't go on your credit report. Any, collection, a medical collection that you pay off can no longer report on your credit report. And it makes sense.
Sure.
It makes sense because of COVID, right? If they wouldn't have made this new rule, how many consumers out there would have, taken a hit on their credit score because of COVID? Tons, probably.
Everybody who ended up getting sick from it, just about.
Yes.
I mean, and that's a large percentage.
Yeah. So it's going to help out a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's definitely, we see it, firsthand helping out our clients. So, but let's pivot back to the real estate market. One of the things that I wanted to also mention is that, I'm excited because me also being a real estate agent, I help out, first-time home buyers. I help out, clients that want to sell their home and buy a new one. I help out people that are looking to rent, but I also help out a lot of investors.
Right.
And I haven't been able to help out a lot of investors. They've gone out of the playing field. And one of the reasons why is, the interest rates, because the margins are too tight right now. And it's one thing whenever my investor clients tell me this, but it's another thing actually seeing it firsthand. And what I mean by that is we purchased 2 homes, 2 investment properties, and we're going to rent them out. And sure enough, I actually finished, remodeling them.
Right.
I executed the BRRRR method, and maybe we'll talk about this later on. The BRRRR method is you buy, okay?
Yep.
After that, it's you rehab or remodel, whatever you want to call it, okay? After you do that, you rent it out. After you rent it out, you refinance it. And after you refinance it, you repeat. It's called BRRRR, okay? So anyways, with these 2 homes, I just did the second to the last R, which is refinance. Guess what interest rate I got? I just literally refinanced them within the last month and a half. Guess what interest rate I received? And keep in mind that these 2 are investment properties, okay?
Right.
So for our listeners that don't know this, whenever you buy your homestead, a property that you're going to live in, you get prime rate. If your credit's good, your DTI is good, and interest rates are in the low 6s, or let's say mid 6s, right? You'll get mid 6s.
Right.
But as an investor, if your credit is good, your DTI is good, but you tell the bank this is an investment property, it's not going to be my homestead that I'm going to live in, they give you a higher interest rate. So take a wild guess what my interest rate was.
8?
No, you were close. 8.5.
Ouch.
So one of the BRRRR, right? Refinance. One of the houses that I refinanced $300,000. The other house I refinanced $260,000. Well, $300,000, $260,000, at an 8.5% interest rate, my payment is what? It's higher than what an investor would want. So your margins are gone basically as an investor, and that's why a lot of investors are on the sideline. And we talked about it earlier, where when interest rates drop, there's going to be a lot of people coming off the sidelines, including investors. It's going to get saturated again, and there's going to be a lot of buyers out there. People are going to be competing, and what happens whenever people are competing, it drives up the prices.
Up the prices.
Yep. So back to what we were saying earlier.
Sense.
Yeah, back to what we were saying earlier. I believe, and I'm not just saying this to get people to, call me and represent them. I'm just saying, to help out consumers out there right now is a great time to buy.
Yes.
Prices are still, a little low, right? They haven't gone crazy, like we're predicting that they will be. And interest rates they've gone down.
They've gone down.
They're not the peak where they were at, right? Low
Yeah.
eights. I saw a low 8. That's what we quoted a client. It was probably like November, December, somewhere in the low 8s for their primary homestead. That's what they received. Yep.
Wow, that's low 8. That's more than twice. That's almost 3 times my rate.
Yep.
That I have on my house.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean, you were talking about mortgages and you were talking about buying homes and things like that. And renting is renting out houses. Right now, I mean, one of the things you're seeing is a lot of rental homes being, not homes, but like a lot of apartment complexes being built right now because the cost of rent has started pushing up. It's almost the cost of housing right now.
Yes.
And they actually, on a really weird situation, and what you said makes sense now because I didn't think of it. Now you're putting together what you just said, put together with something I read this morning. All right. This morning, they say that by the end of this year, that rent prices could overtake home prices.
Wow.
By the end of this year, because of and they really didn't get into the because, but that's what they were expecting.
It makes sense. If interest rates drop, right?
Yeah.
That means that when you purchase, your payment's going to be lower than what it would be today.
Exactly.
And if rent prices continue increasing, that makes sense. That totally makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right now, I've ran a couple of, market value on the homes that I rent out. And right now, though, currently, it is still a little bit cheaper to rent versus purchasing.
Right.
And let me give you an example. So right now, I have a $420,000. I have a home where the value of the home is $420,000.
Right.
To purchase that $420,000 house, your payment's going to be probably $3,500.
Right,
$420, you put the minimum down, right? $3,500. That house, I'm renting it out right now. My rents are $2,600. And so see what I was saying? It's cheaper still right now, to rent versus purchasing because of the interest rates.
That's crazy. So I wanted to kind of throw something out there. This year, do you think it's going to be as volatile this year? I think we're going to see a little bit of up and down on the rates this year, but I think somewhere we're going to get some kind of final drop down on this.
Yeah, that's what a lot of experts are saying. It's going to decrease. The decreases aren't going to happen like the increases that we had last year, right? We had record-setting, we had record numbers as far as like what you were mentioning earlier, the amount that it increased. I think the year before, at one time, interest rates increased, a full percent, maybe even a little bit more than the full percent. So back to what you were saying, a lot of experts are saying that, they're going to stay steady, go down a little bit, but they're not going to have like a big drop, like the increases that we saw, in the past couple of years.
Yeah, I think it at the end of it, a real world for those of you that are watching out there, if you're waiting to buy a house for sub 4 rates, they may never happen again in our lifetime.
Yep.
I mean that seriously.
Oh yeah.
Sub 4 rates probably never going to happen again. The best thing you can do is to work on your credit and make sure that you have the best possible score.
Yep. You read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to say. Is a lot of consumers out there, when interest rates dropped, they weren't able to take advantage of the opportunity. They weren't able to seize the moment. And what was one of the main reasons they weren't able to seize the moment? Because of their credit. Because whenever we refinance, right, a lot of people don't know this. Refinancing is just like buying a home. They look at your credit again.
Yep.
They look at your DTI again. A lot of consumers out there think that because they've been paying their house right now at a 6% interest rate. Let's pretend interest rates drop to the 3s, right?
Right.
Like record setting like they did back in the past, right? So a lot of consumers think that they could just tell the bank, hey, I've been paying my mortgage payment at 8%. Do you not think I can't afford it at 3%? And no, they don't care. I wish it was like that. No, you have to qualify all over again. They have to look at your credit all over again.
Yep.
They have to look at your DTI all over again. So yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. You read my mind. If rates, right? I mean, they're predicted that we might not ever see those interest rates ever again.
Right.
But if they do drop again to the historic lows, twos, we quoted someone in the ones. It was high ones. That was the lowest that I saw. Yes. But anyways, if they do drop again, you want to be ready to seize the moment. You want to have your credit ready, and you don't want to rack up a bunch of debt and have a high DTI, because as I was saying, that's one of the things that they look at, banks look at to qualify you, is your DTI, debt to income ratio, and your credit score.
I don't know if it's a side note or if I'm going too off track on this, but we're talking about wealth and we're talking about credit score, and you're talking about, an 8%, getting a 3% and how much you save money between those two. When you talk about being ready, not only you're being ready, but you're being proactive with what you got. A person with a 600 credit score, right? A person with a 600 credit score is paying $5,000 a year more than somebody with a 640.
Wow.
That's 40 points. 40 points. Now let's understand what that is. You control your credit cards and you keep them under 29%. You keep them down closer to 10%. You're going to find part of that 40 points on your own. If you've got a couple of negative items, have somebody help you, like us, get those things off. If they don't belong there, let's remove them, because it doesn't take a whole lot to be able to make that 40 points. No. And the difference between cost, and I recently did this, right? Between a 600 and a 700. Do you like Aruba? You want to stay there for a month? Yeah. It's almost $10,000 a year.
Wow. That's insane.
$10,000. Now, when you think about that, we're talking about wealth. Wealth is the money you have, the things you have, the amount of monetary support you have behind you, your house, your car, everything you own.
Yeah.
I've been married to my wife 20 years. Imagine what I could do with $10,000 a year extra.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And because I didn't start out with the score I got right now. I started out with a horrible score. And I wrecked my credit in college just as pretty as you please, right? And to think that there are people out there that are still suffering for what they did in college in their 30s and maybe even on into their early 40s.
Yep.
That, if you could knock that out and get rid of that early enough and get that money back every year and do something with it, could change your life.
And it all snowballs. I mean, I just thought of something as you were saying that, because think about it. You save that money that you just mentioned, $5,000, $10,000, right? Now you put that. Let's say you put that into your mortgage. We've all heard this.
Oh yeah.
But for our listeners that maybe haven't heard this, what do they say? If you make one extra payment on your mortgage every year, what does it do? It cuts the length that you're going to have that loan for from, let's say it's a 30 years, your standard 30 years, by like 5 to 7 years. So it just snowballs, right? So you do that, and then now that you're saving all that interest on your home, what do you do with that? It just all snowballs. I mean, credit is power. Credit is power.
And it is, and it affects everything. What you're paying for, the reason it affects so much, it's a little here and a little there. Your electricity, your gas, what you're paying per unit on your electricity, what you're paying for your gas, your water, your cell phone bill, your insurance on your car, your health insurance. The list just keeps going down the road. And that's the reason with, in the credit, as far as the credit goes, you start there, and that's going to affect everything else.
Yes.
And as you get a better credit score, you buy a house, you do what you said, pay an extra payment, drop an extra 10 grand a year into your house. You own it earlier. You end up being able to maybe buy a second home.
Yep. And if you don't believe it, connect the dots. I was able to connect my dots. My life financially took a big turn whenever I restored my credit, whenever I fixed my credit. It started off with, buying my first house.
Right.
I wasn't able to do it before. I rented, right? If I was paying $1,500 in rent a month before, that was like paying 100% interest, right? 'Cause
Right,
it's all going down the drain. That's one of the first changes. I bought my first house. Now, right, every time I make a payment, it's going towards, my home. It's not just going all down the drain. And I could keep connecting dots. Just my finances just got better, after what? After I fixed my credit. That's what kickstarted everything, fixing my credit.
I would agree with that entirely. My first house, I bought it and walked away from it, and I made $60,000 on my first house.
Yeah.
Wish I would have held on to it because I'd have a whole lot more money.
Yep.
It's worth a lot more than when I sold it.
Yep.
My second house, you're talking about wealth. We're talking about building wealth here. Part of that's owning a home. My first house, my house I have now, I owe $380,000 on it, right?
Oh, yeah, you're
I've
telling
had
me
it for
about this.
8 years.
Yes.
At this point in time, it's almost an $800,000 house.
Yes.
I have every dollar that I've spent on mortgage, I have gained in equity.
Yeah. And what else? What else gets older, right? And it becomes more valuable.
Right, nothing.
Very few things, right?
Nothing.
Very few things. Maybe wine.
Gold if you got enough of
Right.
it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, if your goal this year, I know it's the beginning of the year, you're making promises to yourself. If your goal is to get in a better place, start with your credit score. Start with that. Get it. Start looking at a home. If you can buy into a house now, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. And let me piggyback off what you just said earlier too. That's one of my favorite things about being a real estate agent as well, right? Credit expert, but real estate agent as well, is the stories that I actually get to see firsthand, right?
Right.
Situations like what you just mentioned. A family buys a house for $380. How long ago?
7 years, 8 years now.
And now let's say that same family, let's say it's you, right? I don't know, you're downsizing, whatever you might be doing. You have more kids, right? I don't know if you plan on having any more kids.
Would
right?
love to.
Okay. So you have more kids. You need something bigger, even though you have a big house already. You told me how big it is. What is it, like 5,000 square feet, 4,500? What is it?
It's 4,500 square feet altogether.
So anyways, back to what I was saying, right? So I see it all the time. People downsize or they're trying to get something bigger. That $380,000 home that they bought, however many years ago you bought it, they just reach out to me. And not even really paying attention to that because time flies.
Oh, yeah.
You look up after you buy your home and it's been 5 years, right? And anyways,
Literally.
They reach out to me. And then whenever, one of the first steps that we do whenever they want to sell their home and buy a new one is we want to make sure that they're going to be pre-approved for their new home, right?
Right.
We don't want to sell their home and leave them homeless. But one of the other things that we do is we look to see what they're going to receive when they sell their current house.
Right.
The way that you calculate that is you see what the market value is of their house and what they owe, on their house. So anyways, I see that all the time. I run the comps, hey, your home is worth $800,000 and they can't believe it. They just, it's normal. They've just been living life, kids, work, and all this time. How long have you been in your home?
Like I said, 8 years.
8 years.
That's it.
8 years have went by like that. It's time for them to just organically sell their home. It's going to sell for $800,000. And now that they've had it for 8 years, they bought it for $380. They might only owe $300.
Right.
I've seen it, firsthand. Whenever the title company gives them, their money, $300,000. I've seen everything. I've seen $400,000. I've seen $100,000. I've seen $60,000. And what that does to anybody, really, right? What would an extra $60,000 do to anybody? An extra $100,000, an extra $200,000,
no bills,
$400,000, right?
No bills whatsoever. To get rid of all of them.
And that's what I see real estate do time and time, for my clients. So that's one of my favorite parts of real estate.
I believe that entirely. I mean, there's a statistic that I close a lot of my classes with that I tell people because I teach a lot of real estate agents credit itself, right? The government statistic says that if you retire owning a home, you have 50% more wealth than a person who retires without owning their home.
Yep.
And that's just based on owning a home.
Yep. And speaking of that, let me piggyback on that. That was one of my first goals ever. I forgot who said this, but it really intrigued me and inspired me. And I was trying to do everything I could to execute it. They gave those stats right there, where it's proven where if you own a home, just the likelihood of you, succeeding, the likelihood of you building more wealth, right, it increases. But then someone else said this. They said, you could take it to another step above that, right? When it's time to downsize, when it's time to upsize, right?
Right.
Don't sell that home. Buy your next one, right? Buy
That
your
was
next
my
one
mistake.
and rent out that first one. And that first one that you have eventually will be paid off, right? Are you going to pay it off? No, your tenants are, right? And then now, let's say you just retire at that. You have your house and you have this paid off house. And what they said is this, can you live off of Social Security? No.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you could have your 401k and stuff like that. But basically that house that you didn't sell, eventually when you retire, the goal is that it's going to be paid off.
Yeah.
Rents, everything goes up, right? Everything goes up with inflation. So anyways, now here we are, when it's time to retire, now you're cash flowing an extra $3,000, maybe $2,500 a month. Would that help out your retirement? Would that help you out, so you don't go through your retirement money as quickly? Yes,
You're
So
making me regret things right now.
Oh, it's okay. It's never too late. It's never too late because you still benefited from it. When you sold your first house, I'm assuming that's the one where you made $60K, right?
I did.
What did that $60K do for you?
Got
What
me
did you do with
another.
it,
I
right?
bought me a new home.
Yeah. So don't feel bad, if you had to sell it, but just keep that nugget, in you, right?
Right.
For if you ever do need to downsize or upsize, right? If you can, if life allows it, you might consider not selling it, and maybe you execute that game plan, right? You end up retiring and you have a home that's paid off that you're renting out, and now you don't go through your savings as quickly.
That's very true. So here's the beast, right? This is probably in the real estate industry, one of the, I think could be one of the most influential pieces for the public and not for the real estate. So to give you an idea, it's Fetzer versus National Association of Realtors, Keller Williams, and three other organizations, two of which settled out of court, right? Keller Williams went to war. National Association of Realtors went to war. And they lost in Missouri, and it was a $1.8 billion lawsuit that they lost. And it was over collusion. So when you buy a home, right? The 3% goes one way, 3% goes to the buyer agent, 3% to the seller, 6% together, right?
Yep.
And that's done out of the buyer buyer side, the seller side, right? Well, the issue that's coming across is that they're going, all right, so why do I have to pay this person's commission when they work for the other client? That means that this person is working for both of them are working for one. Right. And so that was the argument that went on. The problem that's going to come down the road is that if this sticks, because right now they're trying to get it flipped back over. If it sticks, first off, buyer agents are going to be few and far between. You'll have to pay your buyer agent up front. Right.
Wow.
So if you want to buy a house, you're gonna pay a buyer agent probably a hefty chunk of money up front before they even help you with the house.
Yes.
Well, most people who are going to be buying a house, well, we're already saving money as much as possible to be able to buy a house in the first place, which means they're not going to get a buyer's agent. Now, I don't know about you, but my first house I bought, my buyer agent literally stopped the signatures going, what is this? To this day, I could go back and find the paperwork and do it. But it was something that actually affected me. It would have affected, it was had to do with mortgage insurance. We were going to have to pay. Our old house was in a 100-year floodplain. Our new house was not.
Okay.
And they were going to charge us 100-year floodplain insurance on our new house. Right. And I had no idea what I was looking at.
I caught that. That's awesome.
And she caught it and stopped it. Now, imagine if I was not in there with a buyer's agent.
Yep.
I would have walked right through that. That's almost $300 an extra a month I would have lost right there on a 30-year note. That's a lot of money. Right. And that's what's going to happen is that you're going to get a lot of buyers who don't know what the comps are. They don't know what they don't know what's going on with what they should pay and what they shouldn't pay,
Yes.
what they should put down, when they should get their money back. What is it when you give money to hold on to a house? What's that called again?
Earnest money.
Earnest money. Now, is there a way to get your earnest money back?
It just depends on the contract.
Right. It depends on the contract. You help your people write that, right?
Well, we help them
Or
understand the
understand
contract,
it.
right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
As an uninformed individual walking in there, somebody were to tell me, all right, there's $10,000 earnest money and you do not get it back. I wouldn't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, you being with me, you would have looked at that and went, have you lost your mind, right?
Yeah. But let me ask you this, because there's always changes. They're always, saying that there's going to be changes here, changes here, changes here. The credit world, there's always predicted changes in the credit model, this, that, real estate as well. What is the update with this whole buyers, agents, and stuff like that? I mean, like, no changes have happened. Right now, it's just lawsuits, right?
Right now, it's all lawsuits. There's nothing in the marketplace that's being changed.
Yep.
Because as long as it's sitting in court, they can't apply the new ruling, right?
Okay.
And that's how judgments work, is that it has to go through the whole process. Right now, they're not even going for they're pretty confident right now that they're going to get it overturned, because they're going to get it. They're asking for a overturn, not a new court date.
Yes.
Right. If they just get it overturned, it goes away.
Yes.
A new court date means we argue the whole thing all over again.
Gotcha.
But there's been a lot of people that come out of the woodworks, a lot of things that have come out of the woodworks since this ruling came out, because nobody really knew it was happening until the day it was announced that the lawsuit was won.
Exactly.
Everybody was like, one day there was no lawsuit, the next day it's $1.8 billion.
Yeah.
So the industry right now is not worrying about it. I would actually say next year, before we see a real result coming from it, whether or not it's going to go or not.
Yes.
So there's another reason to buy this year.
Yeah.
That's a good reason to buy this year.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things in the real estate world as a whole that's out there, because, people look at their wallet and they pay for what they think they need, and not always what they actually need.
Exactly.
And if you look to buy something like a house, do yourself a favor, go talk to somebody first. Go talk to, I recommend 3 people: a real estate agent, because they're going to know what's going on in your area; a loan officer, because they're going to know what's going on with your loans; find you a good credit guy who can break down a credit report. Because that's where it's all going to start.
Exactly. I agree. Couldn't agree more.
So yeah, that's the biggest thing in the real estate. As far as mortgage, I mean, mortgage is just kind of going on right now. I mean, the rates have been going up and down, but I think we're seeing a ease out into it eventually.
Yep.
All right, so that's the end of the episode today. Thank you again for having me on today.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on board. I'm learning from this as we go as well. So to our viewers, thank you for watching MSI Wealth Chronicles, building legacies one episode at a time.